Many think Vaseline is just a boring cream from Grandma and Grandpa's bathroom cabinet, but that's a huge mistake. In this video, you'll discover 43 crazy and absolutely practical hacks that will make your life easier right away. If you love such unexpected everyday hacks, subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss any more. And let's dive right into the brilliant Vaseline hacks. Treat cracks in the skin overnight. Grandpa knew it exactly. When the skin on his heels was cracked, he reached for the jar of Vaseline in the evening. With a steady hand, he applied a thick layer and pulled his old cotton socks over it. Then he fell asleep as if it were the most natural thing in the world. In the morning, the skin was soft and smooth. He treated elbows and hands the same way, often after a warm bath. A simple ritual that hasn't lost its effect to this day. Remove eye makeup. Grandma and Grandpa had their fixed rituals. While Grandpa kept the Vaseline ready for rough hands and feet, Grandma used it in the evening for her eye makeup. With a soaked cotton pad, she gently stroked over her eyelids and lashes until the mascara and eyeshadow came off. She swore by it because the skin stayed soft and felt refreshed. Grandpa often smiled when she talked about how reliably this jar had held its place on the nightstand for decades, a small secret she never forgot. Make lip scrub. Grandma prepared her little scrub with Vaseline and sugar almost reverently. At the kitchen table, she mixed the paste, applied it with circular motions, and let her lips become soft again. Grandpa sat nearby, watched her with a grin, and said she had developed her own art. While the sugar loosened the rough flakes, the Vaseline provided smoothness. In the end, Grandma wiped away the remnants, and Grandpa said this ritual made her smile even more beautiful. Softened cuticles. Grandpa knew that well-groomed hands say more than many words. In the evening, he took time to massage some Vaseline into the nail edges and let the skin relax. The dry spots gave way, the cuticles became soft and supple. He pulled on cotton gloves and went to sleep, as if it were a familiar ritual. In the morning, the nail bed looked clear and neat. Grandpa often said that such small habits make the difference over the years and keep the hands young. Prevent chafing/friction. On hot days or during heavy work, Grandpa knew how quickly the skin could get sore. Before he set off, he rubbed a thin layer of Vaseline on the inner thighs and under the arms. Movement became easier afterward. The unpleasant burning stayed away. He liked to tell that this little protection was already reliable during long marches in his youth. In the evening, he came back tired but without sore spots, and swore by the simplicity of this method. Lip gloss substitute. Grandma always had a small jar of Vaseline in her bag. When her lips looked dull, she took a bit and applied it with her finger. For special evenings, she mixed the Vaseline with a remnant of lipstick or some rouge, and soon her lips shone with a delicate color. It was simple, but effective. Grandpa often said her smile was even brighter with it. Thus, an unassuming jar became a faithful companion for small appearances in everyday life. Tame brows. When Grandma stood at the mirror, she paid attention not only to lips or cheeks. Her eyebrows should be in place, neat and shiny. A touch of Vaseline on her fingertip was enough for her to stroke the hairs into shape. With calm movements, she laid them down so no strand escaped. She smiled, satisfied with the result that was achieved so simply. Grandpa sometimes watched her and said she didn't need a big arsenal of jars to look beautiful. Smooth flyaway hairs. Sometimes Grandma had little hairs sticking out from her head, as if they had a mind of their own. She then took a fingertip of Vaseline, rubbed it warm briefly, and gently smoothed down the unruly strands. This calmed the hairstyle, a subtle shine settled over the hair, and the image in the mirror looked more cohesive right away. Grandpa noticed such details and often said that it was precisely this care that made her appearance so special. For Grandma, it was just a quiet gesture, long familiar. Conceal split ends. When Grandma combed her hair and the ends looked stubborn, she reached for a touch of Vaseline. Rubbed between her fingertips, she gently stroked it over the tips. The split areas lay together. The hair suddenly looked smoother and shone softly in the light. For her, it was a little trick to bridge the time until the next hairdresser visit. Grandpa praised her patience, and Grandma smiled quietly, satisfied with the image the mirror gave back to her. Create a shiny eyeshadow look. When Grandma dressed up for a special evening, she placed great value on her eyes. A tiny touch of Vaseline came first on the lid, barely visible yet crucial. Over it, she distributed the eyeshadow, which immediately looked stronger and got a fine shine. The light caught in it. Every glance gained more depth. Grandpa liked to say that her eyes then shone like in her younger years. For Grandma, it was a small art she had preserved. Protect skin from hair dye stains. Before Grandma dipped the brush into the hair dye, she first reached for the Vaseline. With a sure hand, she drew a fine line along the forehead, at the temples, and in the neck. This protected the skin, the dye didn't set, and could be wiped off effortlessly later. For Grandma, this was part of the preparation, as natural as mixing the dye itself. Grandpa grinned when he watched and said, "Order starts at the hairline. Prevent lipstick on teeth." In front of the mirror, she prepared herself in all calmness. With a small smile, Grandma reached for the jar of Vaseline and applied a thin layer over her front teeth. This kept the surface smooth, the lipstick didn't stick, and her smile remained flawless. Afterward came the color, carefully applied, without haste. Grandpa gave her a quick glance from the side and said such small gestures had a big effect, precisely because no one noticed them except him. Protect fresh tattoos. When the first tattoos appeared in the family, Grandpa listened attentively. The skin was freshly inked, sensitive, and needed protection. A thin film of Vaseline applied kept it supple and preserved the design from drying out. Repeated several times a day, the image stayed clear and the skin healed in peace. Grandpa often shook his head, but marveled at the care with which the young ones tended their drawings. For him, it was a new chapter, but the care was familiar. Make lashes shinier. Before the light was turned off, Grandma took her jar of Vaseline in hand. With a calm gesture, she applied a tiny amount over her lashes, as if giving them a nightly protection. The hairs shone softly as she settled into the pillow, and the day faded behind her. In the morning, her gaze looked clearer, the lashes supple and full of life. Grandpa saw it immediately and said her eyes had never lost the shine of earlier years. Softened beard. In the quiet evening hours, Grandpa rubbed some Vaseline between his hands and stroked it into his beard. The hair became softer, the bristles gave up their scratching and lay smoothly against the skin. For him, it was a soothing ritual, as natural as sharpening his razor. The next morning, the beard felt smooth, almost polished. Grandma often laughed then because his kiss no longer prickled, and Grandpa enjoyed this small triumph in secret. Lubricate zippers. A stubborn zipper never threw Grandpa off. With a calm hand, he took a little Vaseline, applied it over the small teeth, and moved the slider back and forth several times. Soon everything moved easily again, as if the garment had gotten a second wind. Especially with old jackets or worn bags, this method was well practiced. Grandpa then grinned satisfied, laid the jacket over the chair, and knew it would serve him for a long time. Polish out scratches in old wood furniture. In quiet moments, Grandpa took a soft cloth, put some Vaseline on it, and devoted himself to the old furniture in the house. With circular motions, he rubbed over small scratches and dull spots until the wood looked calmer again. The shine returned. The traces of everyday life receded into the background. For Grandpa, this was more than mere care. It was a sign of respect for things that had accompanied generations. Thus, table and chair remained part of the family's history. Polish leather goods. When Grandpa took out his leather shoes or the old bag, he took his time. With a soft cloth, he applied some Vaseline over the surface, slowly and thoughtfully. The dull leather got new shine, felt supple, and looked almost rejuvenated. He liked to say that good leather needs care like a faithful friend needs attention. In the end, he placed the shoes neatly next to each other, satisfied with the result that reminded him of many paths he had walked with them. Oil metal hinges. A quiet squeak from the doorframe disturbed the peace in the house. Grandpa wasn't fazed by it. He took a little Vaseline, applied it gently over the hinge, and moved the door back and forth several times. Soon silence settled over the room, as if the door had learned to open noiselessly again. For Grandpa, this wasn't a trifle, but care for his own home. He knew such gestures made life easier. Optically smooth screens with fine scratches on the old devices, fine scratches accumulated over the years, clouding the image. Grandpa didn't let that stand. He took a cloth, distributed a touch of Vaseline on it, and gently stroked over the affected areas. The sharpness of the lines disappeared. The glass looked clearer, the image calmer. Especially his watch and the radio got a new shine this way. For Grandpa, it was a quiet pleasure to make things shine again without much fuss. Make faux leather shine. On Sundays, Grandpa placed his shoes in front of him while Grandma prepared her handbag. A soft cloth, a touch of Vaseline, and both pieces got new shine. The dull faux leather suddenly looked alive, as if it had regained its color. With calm movements, they worked side by side, each in their routine. For the two, it was more than care. It was preparation for the joint outing. In the end, not only the leather shone, but also their quiet satisfaction. Treat water stains on wood, on the large dining table, light rings sometimes remained, traces of glasses after long evenings. Grandpa then took a cloth, applied some Vaseline to the stains, and let everything rest until morning. While the family slept, the moisture slowly drew into the wood. The next day, he gently polished the spot afterward, and the table looked unified and warm again. For Grandpa, this wasn't just care, but respect for a piece of furniture that carried many stories. Protect nail polish caps from sticking. In her little drawer, Grandma collected all the colorful bottles, each with its own shade. To prevent the caps from sticking, she had a simple hack. Before screwing the polish shut, she applied a wafer-thin trace of Vaseline over the threads with her finger. This way, the bottle could be opened effortlessly even weeks later, without effort and without annoyance. Grandma nodded satisfied every time the cap gave way easily and said, "Order begins in the small things of everyday life. Loosen candle wax remnants." After long evenings with candlelight, Grandpa often found small wax remnants on the table the next morning. Instead of scraping, he took some Vaseline and applied it over the traces. The hard wax softened, loosened slowly, and could be removed with a cloth. The wood remained unharmed. The shine returned. For Grandpa, cleaning up after a celebration was almost a quiet ritual. He liked it when the room looked as tidy as before. Remove rings more easily. On some days, the ring sat tighter on the finger than usual. Grandpa then reached for his jar of Vaseline, rubbed a little around the ring, and moved it slowly back and forth. The smooth layer let the jewelry glide over the skin without effort. No pulling, no pain, just a quiet sigh of relief when the ring came free. For Grandpa, it was natural to rely on such small aids. Jewelry and skin remained intact, and everyday life continued. Protect outlet edges when painting. When painting, Grandpa paid attention to every detail. The walls should look fresh, but the outlet edges remained clean. He applied a thin trace of Vaseline around the frame, carefully and evenly. The paint beaded off it and could be wiped away effortlessly later. This kept the work tidy, without tape and without touch-ups. Grandpa nodded satisfied when he looked at the result. For him, it was natural to work with calm and foresight so the house shone in full order. Prepare candle holders. Before the guests arrived, Grandpa placed the candle holders on the table. He took time, rubbed them with a touch of Vaseline, and then set the candles in. When the wax dripped down later, it remained loose without gripping the holder tightly. After the party, he could easily remove the remnants, and the holders shone as before. For Grandpa, this was a quiet piece of preparation that no one noticed, but it made the gathering more beautiful and the work afterward easier. Remove stickers more easily. Sometimes old labels stuck stubbornly on the jars. Grandpa then took some Vaseline, rubbed the edges with it, and set the jar aside. After a while, the adhesive loosened. The sticker could be peeled off without effort. No tearing, no residue, just a smooth surface that shone clean again. He often used this method when preparing canning jars or freeing children's toys from stickers. For him, it was order in the small things that brought joy. Protect window frames when painting. When Grandpa set the brush, he first took care of the window frames. He applied a wafer-thin layer of Vaseline on the edges that should remain free. Then he painted in peace, without fear of paint spots. The splatters beaded off, could be removed effortlessly later, and the frame remained clean. For Grandpa, it was a piece of care he didn't neglect. In the end, he stood there, looked at the work, and rejoiced over clear lines and a tidy finish. Make tool handles smoother. In the workshop lay pliers, scissors, and old screwdrivers that Grandpa had used for years. Some squeaked, others jammed when he wanted to move them. He took a little Vaseline, applied it to the joints, and turned the tool slowly back and forth. Soon the handles ran smoothly again, the squeaking stopped, and the metal shone quietly in the light. For Grandpa, this wasn't a bothersome duty, but care for his helpers. This way, they remained reliable, ready for the next use. Cover small cuts or scrapes. While working in the garden or at the workbench, Grandpa wasn't always without scratches. A small cut, a scrape. Nothing dramatic, but he took care of it immediately. First, he cleaned the spot thoroughly, then applied a thin layer of Vaseline. The film lay like a protection over the skin, kept it moist, and took away the burning. This way, everything healed in peace without the crust cracking. For Grandpa, this was natural, a small lesson in care. Soothe sunburn. After a long day in the sun, Grandpa often came into the house with reddened skin. He took off his hat, washed his face briefly, and then reached for the Vaseline. With calm movements, he distributed a thin layer over the affected areas. The skin stayed moist, the burning subsided, and a quiet comfort set in. For Grandpa, it wasn't a big deal, but a simple habit. He knew the skin recovered faster this way. Protect pet paws from dryness. The old farm dog walked faithfully beside Grandpa, over dusty paths in summer and frozen ground in winter. After long days, the paws showed the effort, looking dry and cracked. Grandpa then sat on the bench, took some Vaseline in his hand, and gently rubbed it into the pads. The dog held still as if knowing the benefit. This kept the paws supple, and the companion could continue unhindered. Protect skin from paint splatters. When renovating, Grandpa left nothing to chance. Before dipping the brush, he rubbed some Vaseline on his forehead, hands, and forearms. The skin got a protective film this way, on which the paint didn't stick. After work, he wiped the splatters away effortlessly, as if nothing had happened. This spared him the tedious scrubbing, and the skin still felt soft. For Grandpa, this small precaution was a natural part of his work. Neutralize odors on hands. In the kitchen, Grandma was in her element. She chopped garlic, prepared fish, and knew the scent lingered on her hands for a long time. Before carrying the bowls to the table, she rubbed her hands with some Vaseline. Shortly after, she washed them thoroughly with water and soap. The smell was gone, the skin felt soft. Grandpa noticed it at dinner and said she not only cooked well but also provided wisely. Soften calluses. After a long day on his feet, Grandpa took off his boots and sat exhausted on the bench. His feet were heavy, the calluses hard and cracked. He reached for the jar of Vaseline, rubbed the areas thickly, and pulled clean cotton socks over them. Overnight, the layer worked, softening the skin and relieving the tension. In the morning, his feet felt lighter, ready for new paths. For Grandpa, it was a quiet ritual of recovery. Loosen gum remnants in hair or on fabric. Sometimes it happened that gum landed in hair or on clothing. Grandpa stayed calm, even if everyone else wanted to grab the scissors. He took a jar of Vaseline, carefully rubbed the sticky spot, and waited a moment. The gum lost its adhesion, could be removed piece by piece without damaging anything. This saved many a shirt and many a strand. For Grandpa, patience was the real art in such mishaps. Insert earrings more easily. Before special occasions, Grandma opened her jewelry box, took out the shiny earrings, and prepared carefully. To make the studs glide through the earlobes effortlessly, she rubbed a little Vaseline on the earlobes and the jewelry. The insertion went gently, without pulling, and the skin stayed soft. She looked at her reflection, adjusted the earrings, and smiled satisfied. Grandpa sometimes stood in the door, watched her, and knew this moment had something celebratory for her. Avoid chafing during sports. Long distances demand not only muscles, but also the skin. Many runners know the chafing when fabric rubs over the same spot repeatedly. A thin layer of Vaseline before starting protects, especially on nipples. This keeps the skin supple, and the movement can continue without pain. Grandpa liked to tell of young athletes who endured their endurance runs better this way. For him, it was a simple proof of how preparation enables success. Avoid sticky cat litter on the floor. At the neighbors, a cat was the center, and Grandpa listened attentively when it came to keeping the litter box clean. A little Vaseline distributed on the bottom, and the litter didn't stick so firmly anymore. Cleaning went faster, rinsing easier, and the tray stayed tidy. Grandpa later told with a grin that even the simplest means could ease everyday life. For him, it was an example of how to solve small tasks wisely, with calm and experience. Keep garden soil away from fingernails. Before garden work, Grandpa applied some Vaseline over his fingernails. He knew the soil couldn't settle in this way. With calm movements, he worked in the beds, planted, dug, and harvested potatoes from the ground. In the evening, a quick wash was enough, and his hands were clean again. Grandma appreciated it when he sat at the table without dark traces under the nails. For both, it was a small hack that made everyday life easier. Light candles more easily. When evenings grew dark early, Grandpa placed candles on the table. Before lighting the match, he applied some Vaseline over the wick. The wick absorbed the layer, ignited immediately, and burned calmly, as if it had gotten new breath. The light lasted longer, flickered hardly, and the room filled with quiet warmth. For Grandpa, this small ritual was a sign of care. He liked it when the light remained reliable, hour after hour. Protect car door seals from freezing. In winter, when frost made everything freeze overnight, Grandpa took care of the car the evening before. With a cloth, he thinly rubbed the door seals with Vaseline. In the morning, the doors remained free. Nothing stuck, nothing tore. He opened them effortlessly, as if the frost had no power. For Grandpa, this was more than convenience. It was forward-thinking care. He knew such small preparations made the day easier, even before it really began. So many small hacks from back then that are just as useful today. Grandpa and Grandma would be pleased if you try some of them. If you like this video, leave a subscription and activate the bell. This way, you won't miss any more stories and ideas that enrich your life. Write in the comments which method you'll test first. Until next time, and stay curious.